The story begins with a UFO abducting a boy and taking him to a distant planet. Years later, the child returns to Earth with newfound knowledge, only to discover the world has changed dramatically. The action kicks off on July 4th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at the Frisbee Dog Championship. 12-year-old David Freeman is there with his 15-year-old brother Jeff, who mocks David's dog Bruiser for not winning. Their parents, Helen and Bill, try to get the brothers to reconcile, but the insults keep flying. The Freeman family heads home, leaving Jeff to play with friends as evening falls. Helen asks David to pick Jeff up because he's too young to walk through the woods alone. David is hesitant, but his mother promises it won't take long. She says once the whole family is together, they'll go out for dinner and watch fireworks. Reluctantly, David agrees, and, with Bruiser, sets off into the woods. Bruiser starts acting strange, and David soon notices a mysterious glow through the trees. As he moves deeper, Jeff suddenly jumps down from a tree, startling David. Irritated, David brushes him off and follows Bruiser, who is barking anxiously near a ravine. Peering into the darkness, David suddenly loses consciousness. When he wakes, he climbs out of the ravine and heads home, only to be greeted by a woman who doesn't recognize him. David insists he lives there, but the woman dismisses him. Inside, David calls for his parents but finds strangers instead. Thinking the boy is lost, the couple calls the police. At the station, officers uncover a cold case of a missing boy resembling David. During questioning, David insists it's still July 4th, which unsettles the police. The officers take David to the Freeman home to clarify details. David runs to the door when he spots his parents, but they've changed. Helen and Bill joyfully embrace him, and he faints in their arms. Meanwhile, police discover a UFO crashed into power lines and call NASA's Dr. Faraday, who is astonished by what he finds. David wakes up in the hospital, and his father asks where he's been so long. David confidently says he came straight home after meeting Jeff. Then the older Jeff enters, surprising David. Jeff reveals their parents never stopped believing a miracle would happen, and notes that many years have passed since that fateful night in the woods. Later, their parents inform David he must remain in the hospital for a few more days as doctors want to conduct thorough examinations. One night, David suddenly wakes up, telling Jeff that a mysterious voice is calling him in his mind. Jeff tries to calm him down, insisting it's just a bad dream. The following day, NASA receives an unusual alien spacecraft. Specialists quickly discover the ship's outer shell is seamless, making it nearly impossible to open or study directly. Meanwhile, scientists monitoring David's brain activity notice something astonishing. His brain is transmitting a massive stream of binary data to a connected computer, which is automatically translating blueprints of the alien spaceship. The incredible research findings are promptly sent to NASA's lead scientist, Dr. Faraday. Dr. Faraday approaches the Freeman family, asking to take David for more detailed examinations. Bill, David's father, refuses to let his son become a test subject, worried about his well-being. Faraday persists, and then turns to David, offering him a chance to uncover the truth, to understand where he has been, why he remembers nothing, and why he seems unchanged despite all that has happened. After brief consideration, David agrees to spend some time at NASA's research center. Upon arriving at the base, David is placed in a room filled with toys to keep him comfortable. An intern named Carolyn Madams shows him a robot designed to deliver food and supplies, as well as music videos. The first time David has ever seen such media, Carolyn admits she has no idea what really happened to David. When she asks him about his past, David admits he can't remember anything, which worries Carolyn, who quickly changes the topic and promises to bring him breakfast. The next day, Dr. Faraday allows David to call his family to reassure them he's okay. Soon after, Faraday and his team begin new tests, connecting sensors to David's head. They question him about the fall into the ravine, but the computers malfunction due to the enormous volume of information being processed. David insists he doesn't remember anything, but the computers respond instantly when asked his name, astonishing everyone. Further investigation reveals David was on a distant planet called Fawn, located light years from Earth. Scientists learn he traveled faster than light to reach home. Despite David's blank memories, the data stored in his brain tells an extraordinary story, one that could change humanity's understanding of space, time, and the unknown beyond our world. David's journey to the distant planet Fawn lasted only a few hours, but years had passed on Earth during that time. Shocked, Dr. Faraday asks where Fawn is, and David's brain immediately provides a star map. "My God, these are uncharted systems," Faraday mutters, amazed. Watching the data flow, David grows fearful, rips off the sensors, and escapes. Faraday realizes David will need to stay much longer than originally planned. That evening, Carolyn visits David with a robot carrying his food. David admits he hates being at the research center, but comforts himself, thinking he'll be home soon. However, Carolyn accidentally reveals that he'll be kept there for at least 5 more days. Panic sets in, and David quietly asks Carolyn to help him escape. Later that night, the mysterious voice calls again inside David's head. Suddenly, a robot sent by Carolyn arrives and transports him to a hangar where the alien spaceship is kept. As he approaches, a hidden entrance opens in the ship's seamless shell. David cautiously steps inside and is greeted by the ship's computer, the same voice that has been calling him all this time. The computer calls David the Navigator and explains that his brain contains star maps necessary to return to Fawn. Just then, NASA security detects the entrance and sounds the alarm. Armed personnel, led by Faraday, storm into the hangar. The ship asks David if he wishes to leave the hostile environment. Breaking free from restraints, the ship opens its gates and prepares to depart. David stops the ship and demands to be taken home. The computer doesn't know the route and waits for David's instructions. David suggests flying 30 miles away, but the ship misinterprets and sharply ascends. Faraday advises going back to the communication room to track the ship's movements. David corrects the command, and the ship stops. David asks why he was taken to Earth. The ship reveals it was collecting biological specimens, but accidentally chose him. According to the inhabitants of Fawn, humans use only 10% of their brains. To test this, the ship embedded star maps in David's brain but lost much data after hitting a power line. Now, without David's help, the ship cannot complete its mission or return home. Frustrated at being taken from Earth for years, David demands to be returned, if not to the past, then at least to his home. NASA helicopters appear overhead, and the ship promises to take him anywhere once it regains access to its maps. They disappear without a trace. Finally, David asks the robot its name, and it introduces itself as Traction Drone Ship. The boy suggests hiding from NASA employees, and Max immediately dives into the sea, shocking David. Once safe, Max focuses on extracting information from David's brain. He opens one of the ship's compartments, revealing numerous creatures from different planets. Among the terrifying and aggressive beings, David finds a harmless Puckmarin from Binpuka Minor, a planet destroyed by a comet collision. David then asks Max to take him home. Meanwhile, NASA radar loses track of the ship. "It's wonderful," someone remarks. "Just lost 2 of the most important discoveries of the 21st century." David's father calls Dr. Faraday to check on his son, but the doctor doesn't admit David is missing. Max finishes retrieving the brain data, along with some useless details, and starts acting like a human. David and Max argue over who's smarter. Offended, Max raises the ship to a great height and suggests David figure out how to control it himself. Nervously searching for controls, David accidentally puts the ship into free fall. Faraday, monitoring remotely, realizes the ship is out of control and about to crash. Luckily, David hits the right button just in time, and the ship shoots up. As David pilots, he realizes it's easier than he thought. Meanwhile, Carolyn informs the Freeman family that David has flown away on an alien ship, but is quickly caught by NASA and taken back to the center, where they demand she reveal the truth about his escape. Unexpectedly, David and Max find themselves in Tokyo, where crowds excitedly film them. Minutes later, they fly over San Francisco. After some time, they realize they're lost in Texas and land to ask locals for directions to Fort Lauderdale. The young people flee in fear. Max wonders about the strange sounds from the car, and David explains it's music. Max wants to hear more and suggests tuning into similar radio waves. News channels buzz about the UFO, and researchers track its return to Florida. David asks Max to stop at a gas station so he can call home. Locals stare in disbelief at the flying ship. Jeff answers and warns their house is surrounded by NASA agents. David says he's close and asks Jeff to explain where their new home is. Since landmarks don't help, David suggests Jeff send a visible signal from above. Jeff agrees, hangs up, and climbs to the roof, launching fireworks that David and Max immediately spot as they approach Fort Lauderdale. Realizing he's finally home, David warmly says goodbye to Max, grateful for their time together. He wants to share his adventures with friends, but quickly remembers everyone has grown up, except him. Max says he'd gladly return David to the past, but warns it's too dangerous now. As the ship nears the Freeman family home, David sees swarms of NASA vehicles and knows they won't leave him alone. Stepping outside, he faces frantic researchers, security, and police. It hits him. There's no normal life left for him here. "I'm sorry. I don't belong here now. I love you," he tells his parents before returning to the ship. David asks Max to send him back in time, despite the risks of vaporization. Max warns he might not survive, could turn to dust, but David insists he'd rather face that than be mocked by NASA forever. They say a final goodbye, thanking each other, and launch into the risky time travel. Moments later, David wakes up in the same ravine where it all began and races home. Reunited with his family, he confesses his love to his parents, the dog, and even his annoying brother. While Helen and Bill debate dinner plans, a small extraterrestrial creature peeks out from David's backpack. Jeff notices, but David begs him to keep it secret. Meanwhile, Independence Day celebrations light the sky. During the fireworks, David spots Max signaling from above before flying back to Fawn, leaving a silent promise between them across the stars.